Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are on a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Sitting Ringside. My name is David Penzer. We are so happy that you are here on ad-free shows at freeshows.com. And before we get to this week's guest, who incredible story, Marc Mero, you might remember him as Johnny B. Dad, and he tells his story coming up here in just a few moments. But I want to shout out to an old dear friend, Don West. You ever see something on social media or something comes on the news and it's like a kick in the gut, like somebody just punched in the gut? I saw Jeff Jarrett post something about Don last week, and you know, I've never promoted in my life a GoFundMe account. I don't know how I feel about them. I think that they do a lot of good for some people, and I think some people take advantage. I'm not even thinking of anybody in particular. I'm just thinking in general. But Don's such a special guy, such a nice guy, such a good friend. He was always so nice to all the fans, no matter if he's in a good mood or a bad mood or had a good day or a bad day. If you get a chance, go over to just Google Don West GoFundMe. It'll pop right up. If you could give $5 or $10, you know, he has his medical bills are going to be skyrocketing. If you don't know, he has a type of brain cancer. Knock on wood, he's going to get treatment, and I hope I can see him soon and give him a big hug, and he could get back to normal. But for now, everything that you could do will help, including prayers and thoughts. And so, Don, if somehow you're listening or you hear about this, God bless you. I know I texted you. I'm in your corner, and I know there's so many people in this business that love you and are praying for you. And if you could help Don, please do. And I know Ad-Free Shows has really been pushing that, and I thank them. What a classy group of people that I joined up with here. And you know, as we said, you can watch this podcast for free, but if you want to get everything that comes with being a member of adfreeshows.com, I've said this before, I'll say it every week. I'm a broken record, but every day I get, you know, probably I get what somebody who signs up and pays $9 a month gets. And it's basically, you know, it's like the cost, $9 is like the cost of I don't know if you can get a Domino's pizza for $9 anymore. But every day I get tons of content and premium shows, and you get, the coolest part of it is you get the notes you basically get the questions that Conrad was reading off of when he was having a discussion with JR or an Anderson or Jeff Jarrett. So if you don't have time to listen to 3 hours of Jeff Jarrett talking about the first NWA TNA show, you can kind of follow through the show notes, and you can see, you know, oh, I really want to hear the answer to this question, so maybe I'll fast forward. I would suggest you watch it all, because it's Jeff's been doing a great job. Everybody does a great job, but Jeff's been doing a great job. But that's one of the coolest parts about it. And there's all kinds of extra content. So I guarantee you for $9 a month, you'll love it. And you'll get an RSS feed to this show. And you also get the archives to this show. It's funny, somebody put on Twitter yesterday, I think, was a program for a match in Memphis back in the 70s between Bill Dundee and Jerry Lawler. And it was Jerry Lawler's hair against the hair of Bill Dundee's wife, because Bill Dundee had already gotten his head shaved the week before. And it was just so funny because I did a podcast with Bill Dundee. It's one of these podcasts. We didn't do video back then. And he went in depth into that entire story, how it happened, how his wife got involved, what she did with the money. I mean, he went really in depth, and I don't think he's done that a lot. So I put on there, be sure to subscribe to adfreeshows.com. That'll be coming up. We've had Kevin Sullivan stuff. We talked, if you're interested, about in the XWF, the Brian Knobs, Greg Valentine, Jimmy Hart company that's based out of here in Tampa. Right after WCW went out of business, we do a whole episode of Brian Knobs going in detail with the XWF. So a lot of knowledge, a lot of cool stories, and I think I know you'll love it. And so be sure to check it out on Patreon. It's only $9 a month minimum, and it's a fabulous deal. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest this week on Sitting Ringside, an old friend, haven't seen him in a long time, had a stellar wrestling career, and then decided.
I feel strongly that saving money is important. If it's not something we worry about now, boy, we are really going to worry about it later. And I want to help you get out of debt faster and do it with cheaper monthly payments. I'm talking to you if you're in a 30-year loan. Now is the time to take years off of your loan. We're routinely helping our listeners cut 5, 10, even 15 years off their loan. And you can do this without perfect credit, with no money out of pocket. You've just got to start at savewithconrad.com.
To move on, and we're going to talk about why he did that. But then he founded an organization called Champion of Choices. He was an author of a book called How to Be the Happiest Person in the Planet, which I want to know how to be. I thought it was a couple of vodkas and Diet Sprites, but I guess that's not in the book. Marc Mero, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Marc to Sitting Ringside.
David, it's good to see you again, man.
That's been a while. So
we actually spent a lot of time in the ring together.
Yeah, for sure. We're gonna get to the question I've been wanting to ask you for 25 years, which is why you were the only one who didn't let me bring you up. And if you knew you were going to be successful, because you're the most successful guy I ever asked to bring up. So, but before we get to that, and I'm genuinely curious, actually. Before we get to that, let's start at the end. You tell us about the Champion of Choices.
Dave, I started this. Believe it or not, it's when I think about this is my 15th year.
I saw that
at schools and community events all over the country, all over the world. Actually, we even, we went to Russia and spoke at schools and churches in Russia. Wow. 2 years ago, we were in Guatemala. We're going to be going back there again. And, we're all over the United States, almost every state over in Canada. So it's just been incredible. I average about 230 events a year for the last, going on the 15th year.
Wow. And you thought wrestling was tough on the road.
Dave, it's funny, when I had my last match with WWF, I remember flying over. I was in Europe. I remember flying back and thinking, oh my gosh, I don't have to travel no more hotels. And who'd ever think I'd be right back out there? So it's almost like 30 years of my life I've lived out of a hotel room.
I don't know if I could, I try to think back on the crazy schedule that it was, and I don't think I could do it anymore. God bless you. I don't know how you do it. I guess when you're motivated to be the happiest person on the planet, you could put that stuff in the back of your head. So just tell us a little bit about your organization. I know you work mostly with kids.
Well, it's usually middle school, high school, and college age students. And it's everything, Dave, there's so many issues that young people are going through today, whether it's depression, anxiety, being bullied or abused in some way, self-harm, and of course, worst case, suicidal tendencies or thoughts that, can lead to, horrible decisions. I meet so many parents have lost their kids to suicide or drug overdose, and we really try to make a difference. And I just found an amazing way to connect with students. I never thought, in a million years I'd be doing this on a full-time basis like this, but I've never enjoyed anything than I do now. Like we were just talking about being back on the road, and it's funny because when I was leaving wrestling, after all the injuries, I've had 14 surgeries, from professional wrestling, elbows, knees, shoulders, back, and I think about, I still get to go out there and entertain people, but nobody's hitting me over the head with a chair anymore, Dave.
There you go.
At
I
least
guess
not
when
yet,
I guess
okay?
when it's your show, you can script it as you like. Hey, so where could people? I'll follow this up at the end too. But where could people go to check out your organization? Because I read a little bit about it. I think it's thinkpoz.org.
Yeah, that's correct. Just go to our website, thinkpos.org. And of course, I'm all over every, social media, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can find me anywhere, but just type in my name.
Well, as somebody who has 2 kids, God bless you for what you're doing. Because, like you said, especially right now, and after the last 18 months we've had, there's a lot of anxiety, increased anxiety, and so you're doing a million blessings. So thank you for that. Let's get into pro wrestling, though, since the show is called Sitting Ringside. You were a Golden Globes boxer in Buffalo, New York, decided to become a pro wrestler. How did you hear, for those who don't know, you trained at the Malenkos under Larry Malenko, who's the great Malenko, and then Dean and Joe. How did you find them? Because you were quite, you were in Buffalo.
Well, it all started, Dave. It was really strange. I had a bunch, I was building swimming pools. That's what I was doing, digging swimming pools,
Wow.
basically. And I had a bunch of friends over my apartment. And one of my buddies, he was flipping through the TV channels with a remote control, and he landed on professional wrestling. And I remember just thinking, I go, hey guys, I can do that. My buddies busted out laughing. They go, Mark, look at the size of those guys. And I think, if I can remember correctly, I think the Road Warriors were on. They had like traps coming from their ears, and they were laughing about my statement that I could do that. And then I said, I'm telling you, I can do that. My other buddy goes, Mark, you're 30 years old. What are you going to do? Start a pro career now? And I just said those 2 words. I share this everywhere I go. Those 2 words are, I believe. You have no idea the power you can give yourself when you believe in you, because we tend to surround ourselves with a lot of negative people, Dave, people that tell you why you can't do something, why you're not big enough, why you're not qualified, why you're not smart enough. And the reason I find that people tell you can't do it is oftentimes they can't do it. So anyways, I took that step of faith. I found out where there was a wrestling school. And of course, that's when I was led to the Malenkos. And it was basically just Boris Malenko, Dean and Joe's father. Dean and Joe were like always on tour wrestling somewhere. I mean, like they're mostly over in, I think they were in Japan quite a bit. So I never really saw them. But I remember when they would come home and come down to the ring, we'd sit at the ringside amazed at the things that those guys could do. They were just like machines out there. They never got tired, and they'd wrestle one guy after another and do all these different moves. And I remember thinking, man, I'd love to know I'd love to be able to get to that level, So that was the beginning. And then what happened next is that I met a few guys that were training at a gym I trained at, and they were some of the guys that went down that would get, that would wrestle guys on television, and they were, they get paid $150 and they'd get kind of beat up and pinned, and they'd drive home and remember, we were driving from Venice, Florida to Atlanta. It's about, 7 or 8 hour drive. So anyways, they said to me if I asked them if I could go with them sometime, and sure enough, they allowed me to go with them. We drove up to Atlanta at Center Stage. You're very familiar with that. And that's when they put me in a match with Doom, Ron Simmons and Butch Reed, with another guy, and we got our butts kicked. I mean, this is like where you go, oh my gosh, I thought wrestling was scripted. These guys beat the crap out of us, And of course, after the match, Dusty Rhodes approached me, and that's when he said to me, hey kid, anybody ever tell you look like Little Richard? Yeah. And that's how the beginning of Johnny B. Bad started. And of course, my whole life changed. And, so many of us owe so much to the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. What a great name, because he gave me an American dream, by coming Johnny. I'm going from making $23,000 a year digging swimming pools, to becoming this, to becoming very wealthy in the world of professional wrestling. And just my life just took off and led to the things I'm doing now, which I couldn't, in life, I know I wrote a book called How to Be the Happiest Person on the Planet, but what I even found better than being happy is being peaceful and content. Happiness often comes and goes. You know, we can have a good day and all of a sudden where there's a death in the family or something tragic happens, you know, but content and peaceful in life is that you could be in the midst of those storms and still have, you know, peacefulness in your life, you know, and I found that that's a great place to be. And maybe it took many years to get there, experience or whatever, going through tragedies in life, but I've arrived at this place that I really enjoy now. And I can honestly say, I don't think I could ever remember enjoying my life as much as I do right now.
That's great to hear. It's funny you mentioned Dusty Rhodes because I've been doing this podcast for 3.5 years in one form or another, and we've had, you know, legends of this business on the Funks, Kevin Sullivan, and we've had a lot of, you know, people that worked in the in NXT, you know, and you know, that have only been in the business for 6 or 7 years, and they all always gravitate when you ask them who was an influence in their career to Dusty Rhodes. It doesn't matter if it's Terry Funk or Tyrus or you know, one of the women that he helped in NXT before they started the women's revolution in WWE. It's just incredible how much of an impact that he made on so many different people in so many different years.
You know, Dave, one of my great memories, if I look back on my career, you know, over 14 years on and off with WCW, WWF, XWF, TNA, all those different companies, and I look at my career, I remember some of the joy or some of the funniest moments I had was when Dusty Rhodes was teaching me how to become Johnny B. Bad. Because, you know, here I am, a kid from New York, you know, and Dusty Rhodes has that, you know, and Little Richard had that flamboyant Macon, Georgia accent, you know.
Right.
So Dusty he'd grab the microphone, he goes, "I'm so pretty, I should be born a little girl." He showed me how to do that, you know.
I remember that.
And just me and him would get laughing so hard, you know. He goes, no, do it like this, you know. So I can just remember the joy I had that I got to spend that quality time with the Dream, you know, that one-on-one, just, you know, fun time that I'll never forget of him giving me a big hug, or when I got something right or had a good match or something, he'd go, come here, and he'd give me a big hug. And I used to, you know, it was like such a mentor in my life.
So either I'm remembering something wrong or you don't remember something right, and I don't really care. It's been 30 years. I'm just curious, though. I remember, you know, I used to bring the guys up to the tapings that you talked about.
Right.
Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yes.
you know, I'd get a van, and people that listen to this podcast or watch the podcast, they know this. I'd start in Fort Lauderdale, go across Alligator Alley when it was one lane each, up I-75, across the I-4, pick guys up in Orlando, go to Atlanta, and then came back. And it wasn't my idea. I actually had Mike Jackson on the show. He was the one who invented the booking fee gimmick back in the day. Right. It was a Gene Anderson idea, actually, that he gave to Mike Jackson. Anyway, my point of this is, I think out of all the people and one of the things I had to do was scout indie shows and you know, try to recruit guys that look good, you had a good look, could work. And I think, and maybe I'm wrong, and no hard feelings, it's been like a gazillion years ago. But if there weren't any hard feelings at the time, quite frankly, I just thought it'd be an interesting story to kind of go back on. I think, unless I'm wrong, you're the only one to ever say, no, I'll ride up myself and I'll keep the $25. And but you could, but hey, yeah, you know, tell Jody I'll be there. You could give me a call. Do you recall that?
Dave, I absolutely, you know, I completely forgot that, but now that you're mentioning that, I remember, because we only got paid $150. You know?
Right.
So to lose 25 on that deal.
No, I got you.
It was like, so I think if I can remember correctly, I think it was, and I may be wrong, but I thought it was Rob Ryder and maybe Bob Cook that we drove up together. Or I may have driven with Van Hammer. I can't remember the first time.
Bet you drove with Hammer, because I never booked.
Because they usually drove with you, correct? They went in the van with you, those guys?
Bob Cook and those guys, yeah, did. Yeah.
Okay, then it may have been Van Hammer I drove up with it. Because I only went a couple of times where Dusty took me off. He didn't want me on television. You know, I only did a few enhancement matches. I wrestled Sid Vicious one time and Doom. And then I may have had one or maybe two more matches, but Dusty says, I don't want you on TV because we're bringing you back as this character, you know, Johnny B. Bad. But so yes, I do remember that, Dave, that you would bring the guys up in a van And and of course, $25 was nothing to pay for gas and everything. It was a good deal. But I just remember that I can go up for free if going with someone else that was going to take me up there.
It's just funny because if I'm and I put a lot of thought into this. I think out of all the guys I ever booked over all the years, you're probably become the most successful. Not even close. I didn't book you, but I reached out to you, so I don't know. I don't know what you consider.
Dave, I only had maybe 4 or 5 matches ever before even going to WCW. Remember? So and I was at remember old Suncoast Pro Wrestling?
Yeah.
I think that's where you may have seen me.
Yeah, exactly.
With what was his name? Shannon Rose was his name.
Yeah.
But that's I had maybe a match or 2 there, and then I went wrestled a couple matches in Claremont. But it was like being thrown to the wolves when I first started. I remember I couldn't be more nervous. Obviously they put me on a pay-per-view against Sting. I just had a few matches under my belt. I'm wrestling the Stinger, and it was just like going right out there and working with guys in the road that really taught me how to work. I mean, as Arn Anderson would say, I didn't know the difference between a wrist lock and a wrist watch.
Yeah.
And but guys like that took me under the wing. Ricky Morton, Armstrong, Raven. There's a bunch of guys. Steve Regal, guys that really showed me or taught me along the way.
Yeah. So I think I know the answer to this question now, and it really doesn't matter. But I was curious if you thought that if you came up in the van with me, you were going to be labeled as an enhancement guy for life, and you were going to go up on your own, bet on yourself, and make yourself a star, or was it just you didn't want to pay me $25? It was a total coincidence. The first thing would be a better story, but I think the second thing is probably true.
Dave, I never remember thinking that, I know I could save the $25, but I had a free ride there, and
I got you.
And I think it was Van Hammer that drove me up because I was trying to get him into it too, but remember this is back in 1991, because shortly, remember, I was only there a few times before they signed me to that contract for in March of 91 is when I started with WCW. Also, seeing you take off there too. I mean, when you became our ring announcer, it's like, you were the guy driving everybody. All of a sudden you're like the main guy ring announcing, which was really cool. It was
a hell of a ride. Hey, so I just wanted to clarify that. Because it dawned on me that the only one who ever said no was also the one who became the biggest star. So I was just wondering if there was any correlation to that. Anyway, so you talked about Dusty. How involved were you in the music, the presentation? I know there was a confetti gun that got brought out that was innovative, very innovative at the time. I tend to remember that was a lot of your input, but I'm not 100% sure. So
it was. Well, let me tell you from the beginning was when Dusty Rhodes first came up with a character based on Little Richard, he wanted to call me Precious. That was the name. And I was like, "Ooh, man, that's a tough name. That's a tough one, So I went home and I started thinking about all the songs back in the 50s, when Little Richard was singing. And of course, one of the big ones was Tutti Frutti, Oh Rudy, and of course, and there was a song called Johnny Be Good. It wasn't by Little Richard, but it was in that era. So I knew I was going to be a bad guy, a heel. So I thought, why don't I call myself Johnny Be Bad? And it was DDP that would use that BADD, So of course I said, hey, mind if I just use Johnny Be Bad? And then, and at that time, my first contract, I believe it was like $75,000, the first time I signed the contract, of course, with merchandise and everything. You might make 6 figures your first year, but anyways, I invested that money into my character. I hired Sandra Gray, who's one of the top designers in professional wrestling now. I put an ad in the paper for someone that can make me costumes, and she answered. That's how I met her.
No way.
Yes, and of course, look at her now. She's like the main person for all the big companies, But anyways, she would make me. I invested my own money into the robes, and of course, came up with the Bad Blaster, the Frisbees, all the stuff.
Oh, I forgot about the Frisbees. Yeah.
And so, but here's the cool thing, and I share this with people because, when you, if you really want to make it in life, you have to believe in you. You have to invest in you. And, you know, I'll give you an example. I remember being with a buddy of mine, and we went to see an inspirational speaker, and he goes, and the guy had like all these books and DVDs after the presentation. And the guy goes, what would you like? And he goes, I want to take everything I can get, one of each one. And I go, I looked at him, I go, is it really worth it? He goes, I don't know, but I'm worth it. And
Oh, wow.
it was stuck with me that I thought, you know, I'm worth it, man. If I can make myself get over, if this can get over, whether it's the flamboyancy, the cool robes, because I couldn't work. I certainly couldn't wrestle. So they kept my matches real short, and the entrance was always longer than my matches. And of course, then I started putting bad bucks in the bad blaster. So
That's right.
on TV, we would use real money, but at house shows, we would use, I had artificial money that said, with my picture, Johnny Be Bad and Johnny We Trust. So I had all these gimmicks, you know, but here's the cool thing, that it got over so well that the WCW would give me, I think the second year was 50,000 towards costuming. The next year, maybe 100 grand. And so they paid for all the costumes after that, but it was because I invested in myself. They seen the worth of it. Otherwise, you know, I just had I didn't have the real cool stuff that I eventually would have made by Sandra Gray.
That's a cool story. And you're the one who discovered Sandra Gray. I see it's tidbits like that I love doing this podcast for, because
she actually just wrote about it on I saw it on her Instagram, where it said it may have changed her life because the direction that she was going at that time. And then she started making all my costumes. And of course, people would see my costumes. The first thing they say is, oh my gosh, where'd you have that made? Or where'd you get that? And of course, turning on to Sandra, then she became the top designer at WWF or WWE. And then of course, now she's with AEW.
Yeah, we had her at XWF, remember?
Yes, she's been everywhere, man. Yeah. And she's a sweetheart, man. We're friends to this day.
She's awesome. And very talented person. And hi, Sandra. I miss you. But that's a cool story. So you're in WCW, you know, you do the mid-card thing, you know, multiple TV champion, Steel and Orange gimmick. And then you left. And I'm going to ask you why you left, but did you have mixed emotions when you left about leaving the whole Johnny Be Bad character, because you invested so much of money and yourself into it?
It was a very, very difficult decision. But, you know, Dave, 3 years before I left WCW, Vince McMahon flew me to his home in Stamford, and we had dinner together with his family.
I didn't know
and that. At that time, and I was getting the big contract with WCW. And I said to Vince, I said, I would love to come, but I need a guaranteed contract. He goes, we don't offer guaranteed contracts. We offer an opportunity. Mm-hmm. I said, well, Vince, I'm not ready to come then. And we shook hands. We had a great dinner, great time at dinner. There was no hard feelings. And he goes, and I remember him saying, someday you and I are going to do business. So now fast forward 3 years later, was Vince, my contract is up. And I'm talking to Vince, and he says, what's it going to take to bring you to WWF? I said, Vince, here's what I need. And I laid it on the table. I just was completely open because I already had a great deal with WCW going forward. There was some friction there at the time, but I still had a deal on the table from Eric Bischoff. But I said, you know, I want guaranteed contract. I want a signing bonus, which he gave me a great signing bonus. Wow. And I want my wife to travel everywhere I go. Now, this is before she was even Sable, okay? And he was like, that is the strangest request. And I said, well, I'll tell you why. I've watched too many of my friends in this business get divorced because we're always on the road. And if she could travel with me, I think it'd be great. And I said to him, I said, and since she's going to always be with me, why don't we make her my valet? And he says, no, let's just worry about you. And so they send me a plane ticket to fly to Stamford to sign my contract, and of course go over creative. We have a big creative meeting because we found out we can't use the character Johnny Be Bad or anything like it. And that's when there was real wars back then, you know?
Oh yeah.
You weren't going to use anything that had anything to do with either company. So
I was in the middle of it.
Yeah. So anyways, he sends me my ticket and I call him up. I go, hey, Vince, there's only one ticket here. He goes, you want her to come with you to sign a contract? And I said, yes, I want her completely. And I want her to go everywhere I go. So he says, okay. So he sends her a ticket, and we walk into his office, and he looked at her and he goes, I got to put her on TV. I mean, it was like instant. So me and her, we went through all these different names, and we came up with the name Sable. And that's how Sable started, was she just was going to be my valet. And eventually, look at her. I mean, she went on to become, she learned how to wrestle and became a women's champion. And of course, became one of the top selling merchandise too at the time.
Yeah, she did great. So I love to ask people this. What was the differences between WCW and WWF at the time, both the positive and the negative, if there was any negative or positive?
The negative that I didn't realize at the time was the camaraderie I miss with the boys. I was always traveling, whether I'm driving with DDP or Bagwell or Sting or whoever it was at the time that we would partner up and drive together. The camaraderie, the workouts, the hanging out, the ribs, the laughter, the fun, the long road trips, that you got to really be with the boys, And of course, that when I went to WWF, being with my wife all the time, you're having that marital thing all the time. Right. So it was, I missed that part of it. And I didn't realize how, I don't know, what's the word for it? How I burned so many bridges because I'm not one of the guys now, I'm not going to a bar after the matches with the guys. I'm hanging out with my wife all the time. I'm having dinner with my wife at all the events, or when we're doing pay-per-views or TVs. Yeah. So catering, I'm always with her. I never built that relationship with guys I didn't work with that weren't with WCW, it's like I'm kind of a new guy, but wasn't really friendly. So I was looked at like I'm aloof, and I really wasn't. I'm really outgoing and friendly and stuff, but having my wife, I'm always having to watch her, protect her kind of, and hang out with her. So that was a really hard part. The blessing of being at WWF was I always felt that to make it in this industry, you had to go to the dance, and the dance is WrestleMania.
There you go.
And I've always wanted to wrestle at WrestleMania and be a part of that. And WWF was so big back then too. It was like that was a place to go. Even though WCW took them over in the ratings for a while, I went back and forth or whatever. It was always the main place to go. So I got to live out that dream of going to the WWF, and of course, winning the Intercontinental title in a tournament, beating Stone Cold Steve Austin, beating Ron Simmons, beating Owen Hart. And coincidentally, isn't that funny? One of my first matches was against Ron Simmons, and when the Intercontinental belt was Ron Simmons.
Oh yeah, didn't even, yeah.
So yeah, so there were so many good points about it. But then, and then I remember the hard part was that my wife really my ex-wife started really getting over, it's hard to walk out when you got this beautiful blonde next to you where everybody's looking at her and care less about your match in the ring, even though you're working your ass off, Yeah. And so financially we said, let's just push her, here I am, I got a guaranteed contract anyways. I make the same whether I'm injured or not. And if you remember, I blew out my knee and I was out for 8 months with total reconstruction of my knee, getting paid that big salary. So that didn't sit well, Dave. As you know, I was the first wrestler to get a guaranteed contract with WWF, which eventually opened the doors for everybody,
It did.
But at that time, like Steve Austin and Mankind went in just a few weeks before I did, and they were given, and Mankind shares the story, they were giving an opportunity, Yeah. So they didn't have the big guaranteed contract, and that didn't sit well. And at the time, I didn't even think about it. Like I didn't know guys were pissed off at me, I'm just
I could see I could see about Steve Austin and Mick Foley sitting in catering, and you're sitting there with your wife, and he's thinking, he's making big money. He doesn't want to hang out with the boys anymore, which wasn't what you wanted to do. You were trying to cultivate a marriage with somebody and a family and whatever.
Let my family save your family some cash. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket, but we will save you money. It's not a matter if, it's a matter of how much. SaveWithConrad.com. But,
and make some money, which is going back to the $25, it's always it was the bottom line for you. So that's, and that's great. And like you said, you did lead to other everybody now gets a guaranteed contract, pretty much no matter where they go if you're in the big time. So that's something that you could always be proud of for sure. I wasn't planning on asking you this question, but since you brought it up, your reasoning for bringing your wife on the road originally was so that, because you saw so many people who didn't work out being away from home. Ever second think that decision, or are you still glad you did it?
Dave, that's a great question. And I was married 2 years before I ever went to WWF to Rena Sable. And, I look at all the paths I took in life, good or bad, Dave. They all led to right where I am today. And I've said this before, I couldn't be more happy in my life right now. So maybe if I didn't take those paths, maybe something would have been different in my life, but it gave her, here's the thing. We made a financial decision because I was getting the money anyways, but now we made a financial decision to really push her where I would be the fall guy, and it really hurt my career as a wrestler. But remember, I'm making the same amount of money. Sure. And Dave, a lot of people don't know this, but when I left wrestling, I still had 3 years left on that big guaranteed contract.
I saw that. Yeah.
Away from. And
so you got the money, you got paid, or you didn't get paid that?
No, I did get paid, but no, when I left, that's when the contract stopped. Because if you remember correctly, my ex-wife led a lawsuit against WWF for sexual harassment and so on and so forth, So we both left, and I decided, that I'll just, I'm not going to fight to get the rest of the money they owe me. So I just want to get out of my life. And at that time, we had enough money to live the rest of our lives. But then again, life throws you the curve, divorce and separation, all the things that happen with that. And life changes again. And, I hit rock bottom. And not only did I hit rock bottom, but I found out that rock bottom's got a basement.
Oh, geez.
So it was a tough time in my life, depression, all the things that I share with other people, I've gone through myself. And I think that what a blessing it was to understand. So when I meet a kid that's suicidal, or I meet a kid that's been bullied or hurt or going through something, I can relate to it so well because of the feelings I used to have or things I went through or doubting myself, and then becoming, opening up my own company and starting all over again and building it up and then getting it all back, after losing everything, getting it all back. It was just an incredible journey I've had.
That's awesome. So, just out of curiosity, you and her still on good terms, keep in touch?
Well, our daughter Mariah. In fact, Mariah's coming in July to spend with me with my granddaughter Sophia. So me and my daughter are on great terms, but unfortunately, and it's nothing bad or good. We don't have no conversation. We both moved on in our life, but we don't. I never say nothing bad about her. I mean, God bless her. I mean, her and Brock got a couple kids together. They're living their life and good for them, But I moved on in my life, and I don't know. I just think it's the best thing that could have happened.
So you hit. I'm going to let you go in a minute. I appreciate your time. You hit rock bottom, and then you build yourself back up. Does it ever dawn on you, hey, because most people are so addicted to this business, if they get an opportunity or you think they get an opportunity, they want to jump back in. Did you ever think about maybe, I should try to get back in the wrestling business, or at that point you were done?
The business of inspirational speaking took off so well, David. I obviously do much better at this, and of course the longevity is much better. But there's certain, you can't walk away and say you don't miss things about it. The fans were great. We had a lot of fun doing it, but I never say never. You never know. There's an opportunity for something in some part. I don't really know. I tend to feel like I've been blackballed from WWF because of things I've spoken out against the company before. But I think of the blessings that came out of guys like myself and some others that stood up and said, this enough is enough. Now they have free drug and alcohol rehab for anyone that's ever been in the industry. Yeah. I mean, the WWF industry, So I think about maybe lives have been changed or saved. They now have strict drug testing, Olympic drug testing at WWE. So I think about maybe some lives that could have been saved because of people like myself standing up. So I have no qualms, and I never think, well, I'm not invited to go to a WrestleMania or something like that. It's life goes on, and every day I'm proud of who's looking back at me in the mirror.
That's an awesome story, and I'm so glad that you came on and shared it on this forum. I know we've been trying to make this happen for a while, and mostly my fault. I couldn't make it happen, but I thank you for coming on. If somebody wants to check you out again, go to thinkpoz.org, correct?
That is correct.
All right, man. Hey, thank you for catching. Anything else you want to promote? Or
you know what? Our YouTube page, if you want to see some videos of me speaking, you'll see some on my YouTube page, which is it's youtube.com, and it's the Marc Mero, MarcMero. And we got about, 115,000 subscribers on that channel that tune in. So, and then of course, Facebook, it's Marc Mero page. And hey, if you reach out to me, tell me you heard me on Dave Penzer's podcast, and I'll be glad to answer you back.
There you go. Free opportunity, folks. Just mention me. Hey, Marc, so great to see you. So glad you're doing well. Appreciate your time, and best of luck in the future. Hopefully we can see each other down the road and reminisce a little bit more.
Thank you so much, Dave. Take care of yourself, and say hello to your family, and God bless you, my friend.
You too.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.